NBL Sunday, round 9, 2 games to preview. One of these games, the Perth versus Brisbane, they've already played on the weekend, so we have a lot of information to get from those 2 games. Perth had the victory over Southeast Melbourne, whilst Brisbane went down to Tasmania, who are on a bit of a resurgence these past few weeks. Check out the content here that Jez has produced on the Tasmanian Jack Jumpers as well. But let's get into these Sunday games. First up, it is Perth going to Brisbane. They have a two-day rest. Or both teams have a 2-day rest. Perth were just electric in their win over Southeast Melbourne, scored 40 points in the second quarter, which is just one of the biggest quarters of NBL basketball we've seen in a number of years. Bryce Cotton, a game changer, shot 8 of 17 from the field, including 4 from 9 from deep. And coming up against this Brisbane team, who are one of the worst 3-point defensive teams in the league, I think he's going to put up a fair few points again. And on that note, Brisbane just don't have the defensive prowess or caliber that Southeast Melbourne have. Southeast Melbourne were 3rd in the league in defense, restricting teams to a very low total. But Perth come out anyway and just put a heap of points on them. Brisbane, they don't have that. They're not going to be able to shut down Doolittle and Bryce Cotton and whoever else they can throw at them. They're going to maybe be able to match up on one of those guys. And I just think with Cotton coming back, he's a 4-time MVP in the league. He just has so much going for him right now, and I don't think that Brisbane are going to be able to stop him. Otherwise, in this game, it is 2 top rebounding teams up against each other. Perth is 2nd in the league in team rebounding. And then if you look at opposition rebounding, Brisbane are 2nd in the league at restricting their opponents, while Perth are 3rd in the league at restricting their opponents. We had a similar matchup with Sydney and Perth a few weeks back, and Perth has dominated the rebounds against Sydney. Now, a lot more volume of shots in that game, given Sydney are one of the highest volume shooters in the league, but 56-32, Perth won the rebounding in that game, and they actually won the game by 3 points as well. Brisbane allow the highest 3-point percentage in the league, 37.7%. I think that just plays again into this Perth Wildcats, into their hands, with Bryce again shooting well from 3 and a couple of other sharp shooters in that team that can take advantage of that. My model had this game at 101-96 to the Bullets, but it's not taking into account the return of Bryce Cotton. So I'm going to switch around the model. I'm going to take Perth to cover the line. We don't know what it is yet because the numbers haven't dropped. I'm going to take the game total over. There was already a high number in the model, and Bryce Cotton coming back just increases that number. And of course, got to get Bryce Cotton. Get him on the ladders if you can get him at 25, 30, maybe 35, and that'll get some good numbers for you. Let's get to game number 2, Melbourne up against Adelaide. Game 2 of Sunday, Melbourne United up against the Adelaide 36ers. Adelaide travelling to Melbourne. This is the second time in 2 weeks that they're playing that late Sunday game. Wait the whole weekend, watching all the other teams play. Last week it worked well for them. They beat the Illawarra Hawks at home. I just do not think they have what it takes to get over Melbourne United in this one, especially on the road, with only won 1 of 4 games so far this season. Now, coming into this one, I have 3 top picks. It is Melbourne to cover the line, another total to go over, and also the Melbourne team total over. Let's get into these numbers and figure out why. Melbourne, they are one of the best bench teams in the league, the third highest scoring bench team in the league. Say that. Adelaide, they're the worst. So what we can see here is Melbourne will come in with a defensive effort and shut down maybe Montrezl Harrell or DJ, and then Adelaide just don't have anybody to back it up. I've been on this on this trend for a few weeks now, but maybe not the defensive prowess of the Adelaide 36ers opposition to shut down any players to force the scoring onto the bench. I think Melbourne have that. We've seen them, how they defended Illawarra a few weeks back and how they've defended recently against other top teams. I think they'll be able to shut down Adelaide and stop that scoring from the top 5. Adelaide are the top team in 3-point percentage, so they're averaging a pretty high percentage, but they're taking the second fewest shots of any team in the league, which is really, I think, hurting them in games where it is tight and they can't get the scoring proficiency going. Melbourne take the second highest amount of 3-point shots in the league. They're only shooting about 36% on the season, but in their last 2 games, 42% and 50% from 3. Obviously, Chris Goling was magic in those games shooting, and he just takes a ton of three-pointers. I think we spoke on earlier in the week that he was like 40 more attempts, more than anybody else in the league. But they're winning games, and they're shooting in the last few games at a very high percentage. Melbourne, they've scored 99.6 points in their last five, the best in the NBL, and against bottom five defensive teams. That number even goes up to 106 points per game. Adelaide, they are a bottom five defensive team. They're struggling to keep opponents from scoring points. My model had this one at 102 to 89 to Melbourne. That's why I'm going to take the over, and I'm taking the Melbourne team total to go over as well. The 3.5 line, I think Melbourne are going to put that away, both in their defensive effort and in their scoring. They're the top picks for NBL Sunday. Remember to like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you're picking in these two matchups. And don't forget always to gamble responsibly.